This tutorial shows the Oakland Data Transformer used with the Mule Studio and the Mule ESB. We're going to show you how to use an ODT Transformer inside of a Mule flow. So the first thing that we've done is we've created a Mule project already, and we've created a Mule flow that doesn't have a transformer at all. It just reads a file and it writes the file. So we'll go ahead and execute this flow and show you what it does, so then we can show you what it will do after we've put the transformer in. You can see that it started up Mule, and now this reads a file from this input folder and it writes it to the output folder. So we'll put a file in the input folder. And we see that it's run, and if we look in the output folder, we see that there's a file there. Even though this file is marked as XML, if we look at this file, we'll see that it's a CSV file, which is the same as the input file. Later, we'll add the ODT transformer, and that's going to make the file into an XML file. Okay, now we're going to set up the flow and the project to be able to use ODT. To do that, we're going to follow the instructions in the documentation. So if we look at the documentation in the Oakland Data Transformer book, if we go to the bottom, we can see there's documentation on all the supported runtimes. For the Mule ESB runtime, there's a section on designer support for the Mule Studio. So this provides the instructions for exactly what we're going to do in this tutorial here to create the transformer and to set the transformer up to be used. There's further instructions for how you run the examples associated with that are provided with the Mule runtime kit, and also there's the details about how you configure the Mule transformers. Here's an example of the configuration and then all of the properties associated with the configuration. So this section here has all of the details about using the Mule ESB runtime with the Oakland Data Transformer. This documentation is also provided in the runtime kit, which is a separately installable kit. So the first thing that we need to do if we're going to use the ODT Transformer is we need to actually provide the ODT Transformer jar file into the Mule project. So to do that, we'll configure the build path, and we'll add an external jar file, and that file is found in the ODT installation kit in the library directory under user. That's the ODT mule jar file. Okay, so now ODT is available for use in the Mule flow. So now we'll add a transformer, and the transformer that we use is a Java transformer. Let's stop this previous Mule that we started before, and we will select a Java transformer and add it in here, and then double click on it to configure it. So the first thing we need to do is set the transformer class, and we set that to be the Mule Transformer 3 class, which is ODT support for the Mule ESB versions 3 and higher. So then what we need to do is add the properties associated with the transformer to tell it what to do. We'll also change the name of it to be ODT Transformer so that its purpose is clear. So we need to add 3 properties to the transformer. We need to tell it which map to use, we need to tell it which project, where to find the project, and we need to tell it the project name to use. So first, in telling it which map to use, we're going to use a map from the examples 1 project that we've copied in a previous tutorial. It's just a copy of the examples project. So we'll copy the qualified name of this project. We'll go edit the transformer properties, and we will add the map path property and use the value of this qualified name. We don't need the .xml there, although it'll work fine with that. Then the other thing that we'll do is deploy the examples project so that it can be used by the Mule ESB runtime. So the easiest way to deploy a project is to simply export it as a zip file. So we'll use the standard Eclipse export mechanism, export it as an archive file, and we'll write it in this directory here. And let's just copy this directory name here so that we can use it for the properties. So it's wrote the whole project into a zip file. Now we'll again add the property, add another property here, which is the project archives property, and this tells the transformer which archives to use when it's running. So in this case we only care about one, so that's all we'll add. And then finally there's one more property we need to add, which is the projects property, and I'll explain the reason for this later. And the project is examples1, so it's just the name of the project. Okay, so now we should be all set to go ahead and run the transformation. So we'll save the flow and we will execute it. And we'll then do the same thing that we did before, which is to find an input file here in the input source, copy it, and we'll paste it into input, and we'll see that it's run and generated an output. We've got two outputs now. The second one was created later, so we look at it and we see that it's now an XML file. So this file was this has transformed the CSV file into an XML file. Finally, we're going to show one more feature which allows you to execute the map as it exists in the workspace without having to go through the deployment step. To do that, we need to change the run configuration to add an environment, add a system property, which will point it to the development workspace. We need to add the ODT dev workspace system property, and we'll set that equal to the workspace location, which can be found in a variable here. And then, just to make sure that this actually works, what we'll do is change the map. So we'll go in and look at this map that we're running here, and we'll just make a small change to the ID element in the output here. We'll just put something in front of it. So we'll change to use a concatenation function, which we've pasted as the parent of this, and then we'll use a constant function here. And we'll say map test or something like that, and save this map. So now we'll go back to the Mule perspective, and we'll stop the Mule ESB. We don't need the map open anymore, and run the map again, or run the configuration again, and again copy our file, paste it into the input, and we see there's another output file. And we'll look at this, and we see it now says map test. So this has shown us that it's actually run the version of the map directly from the workspace, and it's not used the project archive. And if we go look at the properties of the transformer, that's the point of this project's property value, which it names the projects to look up in the development workspace, so that you don't need to use the project archives. And in fact, we could just remove this project archive property, or actually change it to something that is not used. And we'll restart the configuration. and it should work the same way. This way you don't have to worry about deploying at all. You don't have to worry about deploying your maps at all while you're testing them in your development environment using the Mule Studio. And again, it generated another output, and we can see that it's still using the map from the development workspace. That concludes this tutorial for using the Mule Studio and the Mule ESB and using a transformer with Mule flows.